we're here. And we got a lot to talk about tonight. A lot to talk about tonight. So, let's go ahead and get into it. This is Burnt Rubber. Saddle up. It's going to be one hell of an episode. This video is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Stay tuned until after the video to learn how you can save 10% off of your order. Hey, what's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to tonight's edition of Burnt Rubber. And oh boy, well, we just had the next chapter of this whole 23XI versus Front Row Motorsports versus NASCAR saga. Basically, a new chapter has just been handed to us. And oh boy. The idiocy of NASCAR just knows no bounds. Evidently. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. There we go. More. There we go. But, got some things we gotta get into first, and holy shit, there's 10 in here right now. Well, welcome all ya. Got some stuff to talk about, so before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, let's get into a little bit of IndyCar real quick. So, IndyCar. Their debut on Fox topped 1.4 million people for the St. Petersburg Grand Prix. And there was actually a lot of people that had some glowing reviews of how Fox handled the broadcast. It seemed to be miles better than what they do with NASCAR. It seems like they just don't give a shit about NASCAR programming anymore. Of course, when NASCAR does the stupid shit that they do, I mean, honestly, can you blame Fox at this point? Like, what the hell has NASCAR done the last couple of years to warrant Fox even giving half a shit about NASCAR anymore? But, IndyCar, getting back on the topic of IndyCar, even though the race was not that good, it was pretty boring, it still averaged 1.4 million people for the race, and apparently it topped out at 1.8 million for the end of the race. So IndyCar off to a pretty good start so far, and even more so because the previous year when it was on NBC, the St. Petersburg Grand Prix only got 925,000 people. So quite the jump, a 45% increase for this race compared to last year. If it's like that for the rest of the season, then IndyCar is in pretty good shape for 2025. Of course, they still have that 3-week gap from now until the Thermal Club Grand Prix. So they got to try to fill in the early parts of the schedule a lot better. I still say a 20-race schedule would do wonders for this series. So I think 17 is not enough. So now let's tread over to the NASCAR side of things, and some good news if you're a Chase Briscoe fan. Yep, Chase Briscoe and the number 19 team has won their appeal. If you recall from Daytona, they were penalized for what NASCAR called basically fudging with the rear spoiler. Chase Briscoe was docked 100 points. Was also docked 10 playoff points. I think fined $50,000. Or no, I think it was $100,000 actually. And his crew chief was suspended for 4 races. However, Joe Gibbs Racing won their appeal. So, according to the appeals board, the panel believes that the elongation of some of the holes on the number 19 Cup car spoiler base is caused by the process of attaching that specific spoiler base to the rear deck and not modification of the single source part. So, according to them, there was no fudging around with the rear spoiler, so all the penalties have been rescinded. Yep. Gets back all 100 of his points. He doesn't have to start with minus 10 playoff points. No fine, and he gets to keep his crew chief. So that's a win for Joe Gibbs Racing, Chase Briscoe, and the number 19 team. And I know if you're a Chase Briscoe fan, you're certainly loving that. So, hey, good for him. Basically, his early part of the season hasn't been completely destroyed, after all. But while we're on the subject of penalties, there were some pretty significant penalties that came out of the Circuit of the Americas race. So let's get into that. So, penalties from COTA. There were a couple. Kyle Larson's team had 2 race suspensions to the front tire changer and jackman, which was coming, for the right front wheel coming off. So that was to be expected. But the other penalty that was issued, and this one actually caused quite a stir online, and that's the penalty to Austin Cindric. Because he right rear hooked Ty Dillon. And a lot of people were like, well, wouldn't that be, isn't that considered right rear hooking? Wouldn't that warrant a suspension? And don't forget, under the new rules, if you miss a single race this year, regardless, I think the only thing that you can get to keep from not having any playoff points whatsoever is a medical exemption, or a medical waiver, as I think it is known as. But a suspension will completely wipe out all of your playoff points, and you can't earn any until you get to the playoffs, if you make the playoffs. So a lot of people thought that Cindric should have been suspended a race for right rear hooking Ty Dillon. But that was not the case. He gets docked 50 points, and he's fined $50,000 for turning Ty Dillon at COTA. You know, whether or not this is, the right penalty or not, I mean, that's up for debate. NASCAR's explanation is that since this was at a road course and not at an oval, they felt like it didn't warrant a suspension, although the crew chief of Ty Dillon said that the damages from the altercation was in the triple digits. Well, actually, it was six figures, the amount of damages to the car. So, I mean, take that for what you will. Whether or not that deserves a suspension, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seemed to be an intentional right rear hook, and intention is intention. So, maybe they should have, been a little more consistent and maybe suspended Cindric for a race for it, but you know, NASCAR is going to NASCAR. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of this episode and why you're all here. And I think my camera froze up yet again. I need to get a new freaking camera, man. Because this one is just... Of course, certain cat that I know likes to chew on the damn wires, so it's probably what's causing it to, you know, do that shit, because I just saw it do that. So I think I need to get a new camera. But anyway, so the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. NASCAR has filed a countersuit against 23XI Racing, Front Row Motorsports, and 23XI co-owner Curtis Polk. So, this was yesterday. Jeff Gluck. I don't know if he was the first one to post this, but he was the first one I saw report this. This was at 10 in the morning on March the 5th. So he says, a new 30-page court filing shows NASCAR has countersued 23XI and Front Row and named longtime Michael Jordan business partner Curtis Polk as a defendant, saying all three willfully violated the antitrust laws by orchestrating anti-competitive collective conduct. Okay. So, in this 30-page document, NASCAR is asking the court to eliminate guaranteed entries under the charter agreement if the teams continue to pursue legal action against them. The elimination of Section 3.1A of the 2025 Charter Agreement, which provides for guaranteed entry into Cup Series races if counterclaim defendants persist in seeking to have the charter agreements declared as unlawful under the antitrust laws. So basically, it sounds to me like they were really pissy about the fact that the team's injunction was granted. So now they're basically countersuing them, you know, to try to find a workaround, you know, as far as that's concerned. So basically they're trying to backdoor the stay that was already granted to the race teams to begin with. Here's the thing, though, about this 30-page document, because somebody pointed this out. And it's just crazy. So, yeah, NASCAR filed a counterclaim against the teams, alleging a conspiracy and agreement and unreasonable restraint of interstate trade and commerce, constituting a violation of Section 1 of the Sherman Act, which is something that NASCAR is, I think, being accused of. So now they're trying to turn it around on the teams. Yeah. So NASCAR reiterates that teams will get 49% of current media rights deal. Under former deal, teams got 25% through purse, and with promoters and NASCAR's contributions to pool money, it was 38 to 40% during the years of the previous deal, which, in my opinion, is still nowhere near enough, considering how expensive it is to run these damn race teams. So, NASCAR outside counsel Chris Yates on a possible settlement. This is not going to be a renegotiation of the 2025 charter. That's not going to happen. I don't see a great path to settlement, but obviously will participate in the court-ordered mediation process. Yeah, this was court-ordered. So, yeah, there's that. And then, Jeffrey Kessler, who you know is representing 23XI and Front Row Motorsports, released a statement regarding the countersuit. And he says, today's counterclaim by NASCAR from yesterday is a meritless distraction and a desperate attempt to shift attention away from its own unlawful monopolistic actions. NASCAR agreed to the joint negotiations that they now attack. When those joint negotiations failed, they used individual negotiations to impose their charter terms, which most of the teams decided they had no choice but to accept. Let's not forget that Richard Childress basically said that NASCAR basically held a gun to their hands and basically forced them to sign the charter agreement or else lose their guaranteed spots. Which, by the way, sounds an awful lot like coercion, which is highly illegal. Which means forcing all of these teams to sign the new charter agreement could be considered coercion. And NASCAR better hope that the courts don't find that to be the case, because they would be in a lot of deep shit otherwise. My client's lawsuit has always been about transforming NASCAR into a more competitive and fair sport for the benefit of drivers, fans, sponsors, and teams because of their love of the sport. Every major sport goes through a transition to competition when antitrust claims are asserted, and that moment has come for NASCAR. Today's baseless filing changes nothing. We are confident in the strength of our case and look forward to presenting it at trial. So, needless to say, neither side is backing down. And I don't know what the fuck NASCAR is thinking, but I keep saying over and over, the last thing they want is to have their books opened and have their financials exposed to the world. And yet, they're just stubbornly digging their heels in over this. But here's something that someone pointed out, and it's crazy, because this was cited in the 30-page document. It's like, you gotta be kidding. So somebody pointed out that NASCAR's 30-page counterclaim cites an article from Essentially Sports. I'm going to let that hang in the air for a second, and then I'll say it again. Essentially Sports. It's basically a site where articles are completely AI written and not reviewed for accuracy by a human. A lot of their articles contain so many incorrect facts and assumptions, it's an absolute joke. And they literally cited that as a source in their countersuit claim. And by the way, I think the 30-page document is available for viewing online. And you can see it's in the damn document. This is what it's come to. I mean, if it wasn't enough that NASCAR's reputation was already in the gutter to begin with, you know, their reputation before this was already in the toilet. Now with this, I mean, they've thrown the reputation in the toilet, poured gasoline into it, and threw a match in there and lit the whole damn thing on fire, and probably blew the damn toilet up in the process. This is just another example in a long rap sheet of examples of why I've given up on this company. I mean, I didn't even bother watching the COTA race. I was busy with work, and quite frankly, even if I wasn't busy with work, I just didn't really give a fuck. I mean, I watched the Daytona 500 because it's the Daytona 500. And, you know, I got done with work a little bit early the day of the Atlanta race, so I just decided to watch that because, you know, see what happens in that one. But I didn't bother watching the COTA race, and quite frankly, I really don't have any plans on watching the rest of the season. I mean, there might be one or two races, like maybe the Coke 600, because, you know, any 500 Coke 600 double, it's kind of a tradition for motorsports fans. But other than that, I just don't give a fuck. Because the leadership of this company, I mean, they have gone full retard at this point. For them to cite a source like Essentially Sports, like, holy shit. Like, how brain dead can a sanctioning body be? Of course, you're going to have the people that are going to suck this company's dick and defend it to no end. And, you know, if you want to do that, you go right ahead. And you can just let them stick their hands up your fucking asshole for all I care. As far as I'm concerned, if you're defending this company at this point, quite frankly, you're part of the fucking problem. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this, and this may be a controversial statement, but until the France family and current leadership is excommunicated out of this company, NASCAR at this point is irredeemable. There is no redeeming this company at this point. I mean, honestly, we've reached the point of no return. And if NASCAR inconceivably wins this lawsuit, there is no coming back from this. And honestly, at this point, we may actually be heading for a stock car racing split. Much like we saw with open wheel racing. And the thing about the open wheel racing split is it's centered around a lot of the same problems. You know, and I didn't think that it would come to this point with NASCAR, but the leadership is so brain dead. The officiating has gotten so bad. Like, it is a literal fucking dumpster fire. You know, and, you know, I guess the race at Circuit of the Americas was actually pretty good from what I heard. It's not going to fucking matter. Because the race may have been good. The ratings are fine. I mean, ratings-wise, they're doing fine. I mean, the first three races have got, I know the Daytona 500 got a high number. Then Atlanta and COTA got over 4 million viewers, which is pretty good. But as far as their reputation is concerned, they don't have a reputation left to stand on. Like, it's over. It's done. And it's why I've given up on this company. It's like I've kept saying time and time again, this company's not worth your time or money. You know, the only thing I do now is just cover new shit. I don't watch this shit anymore, and I don't do race reviews of this shit anymore. It's quite frankly not worth it to me anymore. And you're looking at somebody that watched NASCAR for over 30 years. Yes, 30 years. I will be turning 40 in a month. You know, and I've been chastised in the past by saying, oh, why would you leave? You know, if you leave, you're not a real fan, you know, or you got to be patient with things. Here's the thing. I'm going to be 40 years old in a month's time. I don't have the time or the patience for this shit anymore. And I tried. I tried to give NASCAR every conceivable benefit of the doubt. I just can't do it anymore. I just don't have the time or the patience anymore. You know, I'm about to enter my 40s. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it anymore. Which is why I've started to cover IndyCar and IMSA instead. You know, and don't get me wrong, IMSA and IndyCar have its problems too, but it's not the same. Okay? We're not dealing with the same absolute nonsensical bullshit that we see from NASCAR every fucking Sunday. I mean, at this point, NASCAR would need to die and be resurrected for any sort of change to happen. You know, and I'm not talking about, little changes here and there over the next several years. No. We're past the point of that. I mean, we can't be pussyfooting around with this anymore. If NASCAR's reputation is to ever be resurrected again, there needs to be changing of the guard. I mean, I've been saying that wholesale changes needed to be made. No. At this point, there needs to be changing of the guard type of changes to have any hope of resurrecting NASCAR's reputation. They just refuse to change their ways. It's the most frustrating part about it. Yep. They're just too fucking stubborn for their own good, and it's ultimately going to lead to their downfall. You know, their pettiness. I mean, it's something that's ingrained in the family, I guess. But, I mean, just look at this fucking 30-page document citing an article from Essentially Sports, which has nothing but AI-generated articles. Think about that for a second. Like, how fucking dumb can this company be? I mean, seriously. There's no saving this company at this point. I mean, NASCAR is fucking worthless at this point. If there's any hope of saving stock car racing, then we need a new sanctioning body. Because the NASCAR that we knew and loved, it died years ago. And I don't see it ever returning under this current leadership. Under current ownership and current leadership. But that's NASCAR for you. I mean, even when they had some positive shit coming out of the Circuit of the Americas, they just completely go full retard and completely ruin it. I'm honestly shocked that they still get the viewership numbers that they get. But anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of Burnt Rubber. Just another stupid chapter in this fucking lawsuit saga. And I don't see this ending well for NASCAR at all. Because it's just... people are just fed up with their bullshit. And, you know, the leadership and their defenders just continue to dig their heels in and say, no, everything's fine. Oh, really? If everything was fine, then why is there a fucking lawsuit going on right now? You know, not to mention the fact that, you know, before we end this off, there is one other thing that I wanted to bring up. Because I was going to bring it up in the previous episode, and I completely forgot about it. But it just shows you how fucking brain dead this company is. They actually made some changes to the damaged vehicle policy. Previously, if a car was on pit road getting repairs and the time limit expired, the car would go to the garage to finish repairs. Now, repairs can continue on pit road but will result in a stop and go penalty. Huh? What's the fucking point of a stop and go penalty? And my camera's gone ape shit again. Yeah, I need to get a new camera. But anyways. Yeah. What's the point of a stop and go penalty? Like, more often than not, if they're making repairs, they're probably going to go multiple laps down anyway. So, what's the point of a stop and go penalty? This is just yet another example in a long line of examples of how just fucking stupid this company is. Like, it's just fucking mind-blowing, man. And it's another example in a long list of them as to why I just stopped covering this fucking company, doing race reviews, and basically giving a shit. It's just not worth it. And yeah, changing of the guard type shit needs to happen for this company to gain any semblance of respect back. Because I just don't know. I honestly think the chances of a stock car racing split in America, I mean, I didn't really think it was possible when the topic was discussed a couple years ago, but right now with this shit going on, the chances of it happening are higher than it's ever been. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't know, but I mean, right now, with the way this sanctioning body is, maybe we do need a new sanctioning body, because the current one, it's garbage. It's worthless. Anywho, that's going to do it for this edition of Burnt Rubber. I really need to get a new camera, and hopefully I'll be able to do that soon, because this one, I think, is giving up the ghost. But thank you very much for watching this edition of Burnt Rubber, and until next time, this is the PackerMan, signing out. And fuck NASCAR. Hey, what's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan letting you know that tonight's video was sponsored by Reaper Apparel Company. By clicking on the affiliate link down below in the description box, you'll be able to browse through many of their different wares, such as hats, t-shirts, hoodies, and other cool items. When you place an order and you go to checkout, be sure to type in the code PackerMan and you'll be able to save 10% off of your order. Reaper Apparel Company. Apparel to die for. Hey, ladies and germs, just want to say thank you for watching tonight's video. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And also check out my other channels, Isaac the Survivalist and Our Honor Defend Archives, if you're a Buckeye fan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.